You are listening to the Crow Strong Podcast, a native podcast focused on getting strong physically, mentally, and spiritually, ultimately to help you become the strongest and healthiest version of yourself. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to the Crow Strong Podcast. I am your host, Bryan Singer. Be sure to check out the website, crowstrongpodcast.com. The podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, Google, pretty much every podcast platform out there. But if you don't have any of those, all of the episodes will be available on the website. If you would like to contact us or have any recommendations for future episodes, you can do that through the website, crowstrongpodcast.com. Also, the Crow Strong Podcast has a YouTube channel up and ready. Check that out for all the latest episodes. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and now Twitter for all the podcast updates.
Everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere, dude. There's some of them that I didn't even know. Yeah. I'll look it up. I'll Google Crow Strong Podcast sometimes, and there's a few of them. I'm like, oh, dang, I didn't remember putting it on there, and I'll check it out. It's legit, you know?
Yeah.
So today's segment will be called Training Day. During the podcast, I will focus on how you can become stronger in your daily life. I will go over my approach and others' approaches to training, understanding of how to get stronger and better at any sport. During the podcast, I'll also dive into overcoming injuries, losing weight, finding insight into regaining our health for the next generation. With me today is professional MMA fighter, Aaron Badbear. What's going on, Aaron?
It's going, man. Grinding.
Yeah, it's been a while, man. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, Aaron and I did some episodes on bodybuilding.
Yep.
Then went over some supplements and talked about injuries and stuff, and talked about some of our training experience and stuff with weightlifting. Today we got MMA fighter Aaron Badbear. You know, a lot of people ask me, what does it mean to be Crow Strong? And I always say, you know, you tell me. Especially if you're Crow, you know, you tell me what it means to be Crow Strong. So to you, Aaron, you're Apsaalooke. You know, you're a Crow.
Proud.
Yep, from the Crow Reservation. You know, what does it mean for you to be Crow?
It means that, look, I'm very proud to be Native American, and I'm very proud to be Crow and Choctaw. I think it's, for me, it's a reminder that we come from a long line of survival, and it also reminds me to be humble, but also very aggressive at moving forward, because like I said, we come from a long line of survival. Our people had to fight for a lot to remain, you know, and especially to get where we're at today. I mean, we have our own government, we have a lot of our own things, our own land. But at the same time, it's like I'm American. I'm a proud American, but I also represent my people. I have a people, you know, and I always have to remind myself of that I'm a representative of my people. And so that keeps me as professional as possible, you know, when I interact with people, because I want everybody to, there's a lot of people out there that won't have very much interactions with Native Americans. So when they interact with me, I want them to have the most positive interaction with the Native American. I want them to remember our people as how I portrayed them. And I want them to be like, damn, man, I met this Crow one time. He's a pretty cool guy, really intricate, really, you know, cerebral. And he had so many different avenues to him. He wasn't, you know, closed-minded. He had a wide view of things he wanted to do. And I want them to think of the Crow people like that. Like, we're not just, you know, closed-minded. We're not fixated on one thing. We have so many different things we want to accomplish, and we're all different, you know, and just like any other tribe, just like any other race, you know, we have so many different things that we're into. And to be Crow, to me, it's an opportunity to represent my people, and to show the world who the Crow are, you know, because I feel like Native Americans, they don't get that opportunity a lot of time to show, to represent their tribe and show the world their tribe, you know, because like, you know, shoot, some people, like there's some places where I'd go and they'd be like, dang, man, do you guys still live in a teepee? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, and I'd get mad for a second, but I'm like, I'm probably the first Native American they've ever met in their life. You know, so like I look at it like it's a big opportunity for me to represent a people in the best way that I possibly can. You know, and it's even like with fighting. You know, there's not a lot of Native Americans like they stick around where they're from.
Yeah,
and they fight.
Yeah,
I've fought in Denver, and you know, I fought at Denver Coliseum, and like being able to fight at big places, cool places like that. You know, it's pretty cool when they, oh dang, you're Native, huh? Shoot, that's cool, man. You know, and it's like yeah, you know, it is cool. You know, like you damn right, it's cool.
Yeah, definitely. I see you as one of those forerunners in a sport of MMA, kind of like Chris Parrish. You know, Superman. I remember hearing about him and stuff growing up as a kid, you know, Superman, you know, he'll show up to like some events or something at school, because I went to school at Lodgegrass. So,
yeah,
you know, he'll pop in and give a show. I kind of always like, you know, a rapper from the reservation. It's like kind of hard to take serious at first, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't hate him or nothing. I even had his CDs and stuff, you know, and I'll listen to him, you know, and everybody always, you know, bumped his stuff, you know. But it was kind of hard to like really believe in him. Yeah. That this is something that he can do like long term or make a career out of. Like it's more of like just somebody messing around usually. Yeah. You know, and the same thing with MMA. It's like, oh yeah, these guys do some res brawls and then they're MMA fighters or something. Like no one ever really takes it serious, you know? Yeah. And then when I went to high school, man, people were listening to us. They're like, oh man, you know, you're from Crow, you know? Yeah, you know, Superman, you know. Yeah. And then from what I heard from a hip hop manager was that a lot of people believe that Superman's the most successful Native American rapper. Yeah, for sure. You know, and I'm like, man, that's crazy. I never thought about it like that, you know, because I'm from the res and he's from the same res I am. And so it's kind of like, I guess I didn't really, and me and all my peers, like we never really gave Superman the respect that I felt like he deserved, you know. And, man, now everybody's all about him, you know. And it's awesome because he's put in the work and he's stuck with his craft and he got good at it. And then now you got guys really making a living doing rap. West Coast Grizz. Oh, yeah. A dude signed to the label. He's got music videos out. You know, he got Crows really making their way because someone like Superman paved that way for them. Yeah. You know?
And he's super inspirational, as to the point where like me, like I always look at it like when I don't like seeing other Crows fail. I don't want them to fail, because like as soon as they do it, I'm like, I can too. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So when he did that, he had so many guys so inspired to do it. Yeah. He was just a huge inspiration. You know what I mean? Big time, man.
So like with you, you know, getting into the MMA game, professional now, you know, how long have you been fighting, and what drives you to keep going?
I think I started fighting in like 2006. I did the first res brawl. I ended up fighting, 3 times in one day, won all 3 of those fights. And, after that, I was kind of like, I was trying to go to college and wrestle, and I went and hit a wrestling camp, and, you know, that's the reason why I was able to win 3 fights in one day, is because fresh out of a wrestling camp, I was ready to go, you know, do some wrestling. And then I had a little bit of jiu-jitsu, and, you know, and it was tough for me because, like I was saying earlier, I'm not real comfortable with like hitting people, but I love grappling, and I love like once you get in a fight, hitting people is not a problem, but like training hitting people, for, you know, it's like, it's kind of awkward for me. So, but at the time I was kind of like, yeah, I'll give it a shot, you know, I'll do it. And I ended up being like the second lightest in the division, you know, and, it was pretty scary because like there's a couple guys there that I've seen knock dudes out. You know, and when I seen them enter the tournament, I'm like, dang, I don't know if I should be here, you know? And then I won all 3 of my fights, and I ended up beating the guy that I was most scared of. And to this day, he's hit me the hardest of anybody I've ever fought, you know? And so, I mean, it was cool to get through that. And after that, when I conquered that mountain that day, like I got over a fear of fighting a guy I was scared to fight. I beat him. I won 3 fights in one day. After that, I was kind of like, I think I'm a fighter now. I think I'm going to fight. And then I ended up going to the Babcock, doing Thursday night fights, and I won another fight against a big dude who outweighed me by like 20 pounds. And I was like, I think I'm going to do this, man. You know, and then after that, it was like I was just hooked. And I never really trained because I was an amateur. I was kind of a weekend warrior, and I was always asked, if you want to take a fight next weekend? I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it, you know. And I was never super successful, you know, most of the time because of that. But I think when you're a fighter, It's there's some guys out there that are athlete fighters. There's like GSP said it. He's like, you got the athletes, you got the fighters, and then you got the artists, and there's some guys that are really athletic and then they fight and then you don't see them again. There's some guys that are fighters. They're not very athletic and they fight forever, and then you have the artists who are just like super into their art and they just almost paint a canvas every time they fight, and it's, I don't know, like, I don't know where I identify at. I think for the longest time, I was just a fighter. Like I think I'm somewhat athletic. I'm not super athletic. I don't think I'm like, I can't go do a lot of like super athletic crap, but I'm definitely, I think when like I step in a gym, I'm evenly athletic as some of the big guys. I think I'm athletic as for a big guy, but like I'm not going to be able to go in there like some guys and be good at basketball, be good at football, I think I'll only be good at certain sports. But I definitely think my mentality is the reason what pushes me to keep fighting it's like once you get that rush, it's like a drug. Like once you feel that, and then you like when you really get that feeling of being free, like once I get in the cage, it's nerve wracking, but once they say fight, it's like, it's underwater silence. It's just like, it's like I don't know. It's like guys that, adrenaline junkies, they like need that they need to do that. For me, it's like fighting. It's like, I've never found anything that gave me the rush of going out there and being free to just be a berserker and just do damage, even though I look at it a lot differently than people. Like it's a fight to me. I don't look at it like I don't overthink it. I don't like try to build this thing up like it's game plans, all this stuff, because it's chaos. And it's like in my mind, I think, okay, well, if there was no referee in here, like we'd be fighting to the death. Like we'd be trying to kill each other. Because if I hung on to a choke too long, you're gonna die. If I hit you too long or too many times, you're gonna die. So like it's like I think of it that way. Like this guy could kill me. You know what I mean? So like I have to. It's like it's a dog eat dog world, man. One of us is getting jacked up. So it's like I have to think of it as a fight. I can't think of it as an opportunity for me to be athletic and compete. It's a fight. So in my mind, it's like, okay, let's go. It's fight time, man. So I just put out everything that I have for, because I care about people, but for that, as soon as it's time to go, I don't care about anybody's nothing. It's time to, it's time to have somebody tell me to stop, so yeah, I have to look at it like that. I think I fall under the fighter aspect more than the artist or the athleticism.
Yeah. So mixed martial arts, there's different styles of fighting, several different, lot of different styles of fighting.
Yeah.
What are some of your styles? What are some things that you dabbled into? Would you consider yourself more of a boxer, kickboxer, jiu-jitsu, wrestler?
I'm more of a wrestler. I'll always identify as a wrestler because my mindset is a wrestler's mindset.
Okay.
And I don't think people get to really experience that, what a wrestler mindset is compared to everything else. There is technique in wrestling, but if I have the opportunity to outwork somebody, I'm going to win. If I can outgrind you, I'm going to win. It's all about looking at somebody. Like there's times where I wrestled people I knew were better than me, but I was like, well, you're still going to get a handful of Aaron Badber and I'm going to grind on you. And if you can't keep up, then I'm going to beat you.
Yeah.
And, there's been times where I beat kids that should have beat me. There's been times where kids beat me that I should have beat, that I was supposed to beat, so I identify as a wrestler. I'm super comfortable grappling. I took to jiu-jitsu really well, because it's grappling. I know how to take people down, hold them down and make it claustrophobic, and adding in the punches, adding in the positions of being able to submit people. It was just, it happened. It's been a lot easier to do that than it has been able to learn striking. I'm not super comfortable on my feet, but I'm not uncomfortable on my feet either, but I do feel like as soon as it hits the ground, then I'm fine. There is guys out there that probably jack me up on the feet, and for sure, but it's like, I'm still not afraid to fight him if it's an MMA fight. Because I was like, it's like, okay, well, you're better than me on the feet, but once we get on the ground, I'm going to strangle you. And it's either that or I'm just going to hold you down, and I know how to hold people down. And that's a good thing about it. Like, that's why I think there's a balance with all these different styles of fighting. I've never thought that when you go into a fight and you see stylistically, this guy's a grappler, so he should win. I'm like, I don't know, man. I've seen grapplers kind of think that they can strike and they get knocked out. So I think having a high fight IQ is very important also.
I was watching an interview recently with GSP, George St. Pierre, and they're asking him what he did with his first $1 million. And I've seen it, a few professional athletes answer that. And, everybody, they talk about how, buying that house and buying, a car for their parents, buying themselves a car. And it seems like a lot of people's money goes to, things like that, But when it came to George St. Pierre, man, all of his whole $1 million, he didn't even spend it. He investing in himself. A lot of his money was spent on traveling, putting money into places like he'll travel to New York to do like kickboxing with somebody, really good kickboxers. He'll travel to Brazil to do jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
So all of his money was an investment into himself.
Yeah.
What are some things that you've invested in as far as your MMA career?
My first fight purse went into a plane ticket to go train with Vinny Magagange.
Okay.
Yeah. It was, as soon as I got my check, I said, I'm going to invest in my jiu-jitsu. And I went and spent 4 days down in Las Vegas and I trained with him.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was definitely, you have to do that. I mean, it was, to hear that GSP did that, I'm not even surprised because, he's so smart, and he's not even like smart. He's not even just smart as a fighter. He's just smart as a businessman, a person, like every decision that he's made, I've agreed with. When he took time off, I'm like, yeah, dude, do it, and it's like, he's such a smart guy. So to hear that he's done that it doesn't surprise me, because I mean, it's a smart thing to do. And I'm not super materialistic. I still cruise a 94 Ford Bronco that I love to keep doctoring, keep doctoring that big B stuff. But
like how have you invested in your body?
I've definitely made sure that I have had top of the line stuff. Like I've bought stuff. Like I got my stuff from Thailand, because of these kickboxers using gloves from Thailand. So I was like, well, I'm getting those gloves, my gis, like I get nice gis and stuff that I can rely on. And then training, like I've always kept my gym memberships, like current, supplementation. Like I've always gotten my own supplements. Like I don't fully rely on supplements, but I know that them being tuned with food, it'll, I know when I'm doing good with my diet and my supplementation, I can feel. And then on top of that, my mind, like I've had to spend certain time to find how to keep my mind at a balance of being able to be confident and then also know how to keep my body healthy as far as injury prevention. So like being able to like sit down and put time aside to learn, especially as I get older, because the bodybuilding injury prevention is so much different than injury prevention for jiu-jitsu, because your joints are getting torqued, you're getting wrenched, things are getting bent, the way they're not supposed to bend. And it's important for me to be able to identify situations that I could possibly get hurt.
Yeah.
So I've had to really invest. Being able to invest more time into myself, rather than just money. Because I mean, even if I can't be at a big gym to train, I had to, put time into learning this craft, and also being able to stay current as a wrestler, so it's good that, I can say that I still have wrestling gear. I still have, I'm putting time aside for my kids to learn wrestling. And, so I think it's important to put time into your brain, just as much as anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. What are some things you do in your training that is aside from fight training? You do your fight training, of course, you probably do jiu-jitsu and kickboxing and everything else, but what are some things that you do in your training that, other than fight training?
Like there's this thing that I do where I have to like warm up certain ways. And during that warm up, I think of all kinds of different situations. you know, and I think of situations where I got caught in, where I got what's worse than getting submitted is getting caught in a position that you can't win. And cause then when you get in that position, your confidence heads out, and then you're like in that mode where you're just ball up and you're not advancing. So when you get in that position and people know that you're weak on your back, or you're weak in side control, because you can't escape side control. You know, it's like, damn, you know, I'm in side control again, you know, and if this were a fight, this guy could elbow my face in, you know, or he could start raining punches down and, you know, possibly set up a submission. So like, I think of those positions where I'm not in a lot, and I prepare myself for those positions, especially against other big, strong guys that are really good at side control. Cause I mean, that's probably one of the most claustrophobic places to get in with a big dude, is when he's in side control and he's putting his weight on you and you can't hip escape out, you know, and, that's usually a position I put a lot of people in side control. So I think about that. And then also I think about where I'm able to turn it off, you know, and, be able, cause I can't go home and sit there and be in this killer mentality while I'm with my family, you know? So I have to really train my brain how to be able to, you know, make the most of my training time.
Yeah.
Cause it's a chess match. It's 100% more mental than anything else, you know?
Yeah. What are some things about, you know, MMA that you love about the sport in general?
That it's the one thing I love most about the sport is that you can't ever count anybody out. Like you can't, like on paper, there's been like, what I love about MMA and like combat sports is there's so much more upsets in these sports than there is in like football, or, you know, cause it's a single person sport, you know? So like when Buster Douglas knocked out Mike Tyson, like that happens more than people think. It's just on a smaller scale, you know, cause then like there's been times where like in wrestling where I was like, oh, I should beat this kid. And this kid's giving me one of the hardest matches I had of the season, you know, and I'm like, damn, this guy learned a lot, you know? And so that's what I love about it. It's like when people think like, you know, or like somebody lost like the first round and they lost the second round and they come out in the third round and they just like land a perfect hook and the guy's wobbling around, then he takes him down and chokes him out. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's, you know, that happens a lot. And it's like, it's so interesting because you can never count anybody out at any point of the fight.
Yeah.
You know, especially when they're hurt. You know, it's one thing that's beautiful about the sport is it's anybody's fight. Yeah. You know, yeah. And it makes it to where like, even when you're getting your butt kicked, you still think like, I still got 5 minutes to tag this dude, you know, or catch this guy in a submission. So yeah, you're never done, you know. 5 minutes is like in football, like a guys can be up 3 scores in the last 5 minutes. Like, oh, it's done. But in MMA, it's like, I still got 5 minutes to catch you, dude. You know, and I'm not done yet, you know, and I still, you know, I still got cardio. I still got a little bit more time. Like I could catch you, you know, like when Chael Sonnen 4 rounds straight of beating up Anderson Silva, and Anderson Silva caught him with a triangle choke in the last round and won it. You know, it's like, that's possible at any minute of the fight.
Tyson Fury, he got knocked down twice.
Yeah.
Then he came back and won, right? He came back and did awesome.
Yeah.
The adversity in fighting seems like it's constant. You're always battling adversity.
Yep.
And you see some guys get caught, some guys lose really big fights, right? Or get dominated or something. And they go through this adversity. It seems like only the great ones figure out how to come back after that.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's in the fight or losing a fight and having to come back and win, you know, the next fight. What are some ways that how do you overcome adversity?
It has to be with your training. Like you have to be put in that position. It's a part of your training to, like, I love situational training with rolling, because there's positions that I won't get in when I'm rolling, because I'm such a wrestler. I just automatically go into side control and I work from, and I think pass the guard, when some guys will just happily sit on their butt. Like, all right, you know, they'll just wait and like try to invite me in their guard. And some guys will go right in the guard. You know, some guys are like, love, you know, hitting that guard and then passing it. But like, for me, it's, like I have to put myself in situational drills where like, okay, I'm not here. This is where I would freak out in a match. You know, this guy had my back in a tournament and I was kind of like, I didn't breathe, you know, and it made me tired and I was freaking out, trying not to get rear naked choked. And I was thinking in my brain, like, dang, this guy's going to choke me out. And I was stuck there, and and it was like fighting off this choke. And in my mind, I'm like, damn, this guy's going to choke me out in front of my mom. You know, my mom's recording, and I'm like, shoot. And then next thing you know, I ended up peeling a hook, sinking my hip down in the mat, and I turned into him. And I got out of it. I got out of that he had my back, and I got out, and I ended up in his guard. And I was like, all right, now I'm passing guard. So I'm going to start shredding, trying to pass guard. And like same thing in a fight, man, there's been times where somebody had my back, and when they're on your back and they're hitting you, you're just like, okay, I can't really hit you back. I have to get out of this, you know? And it's like, there's those dismal positions where you're just like, it almost feels like it's futile to try to fight back. You have to think, how do I get out of this? Because fighting back from here is pointless. You know, when somebody has you mounted, I'm not going to knock you out from my back. So why am I punching? You know, I have to fight out of this. And that has to be in your training. You have to put yourself in those bad positions with training with guys that are better than you. And that's a super important thing in any sport, you know, but I think it's more so in fighting because, like I said, anything can happen in a fight. People fall down weird all the time. Takedowns don't happen necessarily always, like, especially when you're against a cage, and there's like the cage is like a third person, you know? So it could really mess up your takedowns, or it could really help your takedowns. So, I mean, you have to really put yourselves in these bad positions against guys that are just pounding on you to teach your brain how to overcome that. Because once you overcome it in training, your brain knows that this isn't the end. We're good. Don't freak out. You know your training, use your technique, get out of this position. Because in some guys, when you're tired and then you see guys in side control pounding somebody out, and then the guy just balls up, it's kind of like, then they accepted defeat. And I've done that. I've accepted defeat because I was tired. I didn't have the training, and like I didn't train my brain how to have heart to get out of this, you know? And I think that's super important to get in training, to have those positions be almost a part of your, you know, everyday aspect of being in trouble, because you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get in trouble, and you're going to get hurt, and you're going to have to fight out of a position where you don't even know up from down, you know? And
yeah, it seems like, well, with every sport, but especially MMA or boxing, fighting, you know, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, for sure. And then like that feeling of that, like me, like I like to make people feel claustrophobic on the ground. Like I like put my shoulder in your jaw, so your jaw is going to pop, and I put my center of gravity right on your chest, and I move. So, and I've learned that from wrestling, where to keep my center of gravity at and how to manipulate momentum on the ground. So I like to make it claustrophobic. So people will, like, I can feel them breathing, and I'll work against the breathing, and I'll make it shallower for them, so they have to move their hips. So I think kind of like making that claustrophobic feeling is fun for me, you know? And then once you start sinking, working chokes, and it's almost kind of like it's getting more claustrophobic. So I know what that feels like, and it sucks. Cause I mean, I've had big dudes and, you know, just put me in side control and just feel like there's like, I have a 500-pound dude on me, you know, but it's just like, they're just easing in, making it harder for you to breathe, making it harder for you to move. And then next thing you know, you're like, just fucking choke me. You know, let's start over. You know, I'm like, shit, this sucks.
So, who are some great fighters and maybe coaches that inspired you growing up?
One of the first fighters that inspired me, like when I first got into MMA, was Randy Couture. Just to see that, you know, a wrestler because he wasn't a big guy, like Mark Coleman and, you know, like Mark Kerr and those guys that were huge wrestlers. Randy was like this older guy who used a lot of wrestling to beat some scary dudes like Vitor Belfort, you know, and he was a multiple weight class champion. And he was a guy who was super humble at the time. You know, I mean, he's still humble now, but at the time at that sport, it was like he wasn't trash talking guys after he beat him up, or he wasn't talking his way into fights, and he was still doing good. And like, I think wrestling is primarily like a super humble sport. You don't get a lot of you don't get a lot of the televised, like you don't get matches by trash talking. You don't win NCAA, you don't become an All-American by trash talking. You have to win. There's no way you're going to talk yourself into a championship match. You have to win to that match. So trash talking doesn't really mean anything in wrestling. In wrestling, only your wins mean anything, because that's the only way you're going to get to the big matches is by winning your way there. So I think wrestlers, when I seen that, it was really inspiring to me. Like, I don't have to trash talk because I'm not good at it anyway. So it inspired me to get into the sport. And then I started meeting guys that were like really inspiring to me, as far as when you meet these big name fighters and then you find out they're just people, and they're super goofy, they're super humble, and they're just people, and that's how it was with Vinny when I met him. This guy just won Abu Dhabi. He beat Fabricio Verdun, a heavyweight. And I was like, when I met him, I was like, this guy's probably going to be like super, I don't know. I just expected like a cyborg or something, and I met him and he's like cool as hell, and I was kind of like, dang, it's just a human being. And then I ran into Randy downstairs. I'm like, dang, he's just a human being, he's like just going through life, man. These guys don't care. And then my next favorite fighter is Matt Hughes, and I meet him. I was like, he's just like every other asshole on the mat. He's just a wrestler that truly believes that he's the best wrestler on the mat. And I was like, he's just another wrestler. I'm like, dang, these guys are human beings. And being able to train with Matt Hughes and Chuck Liddell was like probably one of the best experiences for me, because at the time they were almost retired. Chuck wasn't champ no more, but like, what Chuck did to people, like this guy knocked so many dudes out. Matt Hughes like knocked so many dudes out and like just smashed people as a wrestler. And then Chuck Liddell's a really, he was a good wrestler too. And that's how he was able to, force people to stand and bang with him, because he knew how to avoid takedowns. And so like meeting these guys, it just inspired me so much more, because I didn't have to be this big trash talker or this great, like I didn't have to be special, I didn't have to be special because I knew I wasn't special. But the fact that I could compete and as a wrestler and be good as a wrestler and as a grappler, I was like, I can do this, man. And then I started rolling with Jared, and Jared's got, Jared's a black belt. I'm like, damn, if Jared's a black belt, it's Jared Stewart. And I was like, dang, if Jared is a black belt, I can be a black belt, I was like, shoot, because Jared's not a super athletic guy. He's a damn good jiu-jitsu coach, and he can compete, and he's really good at jiu-jitsu, but I was like, he's not super athletic, and he's like, there's nothing really. I mean, he's a special ass guitar player though. I mean, you know what I mean? But like, he's amazing at guitar and stuff. But like, when it came to the mat stuff, I was kind of like, he's not extremely gifted. He just puts in the work, and he's not afraid to work, and I was like, that's what I identified with. And it's like, I don't have to be special, man. I just went out there and I just have to, you just have to be there. You just have to show up. And I think that's the biggest part of it, was just running into people that were just people, man, and then that inspired me more, because I knew I didn't have to be this special person that had to have God-given talent to be somebody, and it's cool being known as a fighter, and it's like, I think that when you meet people like Will Grundhauser and, these guys who are longtime champions for Fusion here around here, or the guys that like Chris Camozzi over in Denver, like these guys who fought in UFC, and they're like, hey man, what's up, man? They're like, one train, it's like, dang, man, like it's not what you expect. It's super, man. I think that's important when these guys are able to look at these people like me at the time that were just coming up, that were just an amateur fighter, and just be like, hey man, you want to train? It's like, do I get to train with you? Like, I thought I had to be like invited, and they're like, no, just come on the mats, dude. I'm like, man, that's cool. Cause I was like, looked at it like, who gets to train with Mayweather? You know what I mean? Like, who gets to train with like, who do these guys get to train with? They always had these closed training gyms and stuff. And like, going into the MMA, it's like, these guys are just on the mat the next day, and they got like 40 students that just like, oh yeah, that's just them. Yeah. And it's cool, man. It's really cool just to run into them, and train.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, man. What I noticed, there's a lot more native MMA fighters now, especially there up in Billings, because they don't have res brawls no more. And how do you get into it? What would your recommendation be for any of these res kids trying to get into MMA?
My number one recommendation would always be, first, man, just to get over yourself. I had to do that. I had to get over myself. I had to get over myself and cut my ego out, because you're not gonna always win every role. You're not gonna win every sparring session. You don't even need to win every sparring session. You don't even have to win every role. You don't have to be the best in the training, like in every training session. You don't have to be the best. You just got to be better than you were yesterday. You got to get better than you were before you got on that mat. I think that like with natives, we have so much pride, in who we are. And we don't want to be seen as weak, even if we're having a bad day or we're fragile at a certain time or we're going through something. Like we're so prideful. We don't want to let anybody win. We can't let anybody else have one. You know what I mean? And even to this day, like when I roll a certain, Crow man, it's kind of like they still can't, they can't accept certain things, and it's cool. But at the same time, I'm like, man, I think we get so much more out of each training session if we just accepted the fact that we don't have to win everything in training. You don't have to win anything at all in training. You just got to train. And accepting that, showing up every day and getting that work done is going to be the best thing you can do for yourself. Because I mean, even right now to this day, shoot, I had to swallow my pride, get over myself. Because I mean, I had so much anxiety with people. Like it's hard for me to go into a new environment, especially like an environment with like MMA, because it's painful. It's a painful sport. It's a hurt business, man. Like none of this stuff feels good. Even when I tap out the choke, like a little simple choke, like it crushes your windpipe. You feel your head. It feels like it expands 2 times the size because the blood pressure is off, and none of this is comfortable. But like when I go in there, and it's like, imagine meeting a new group of people and then you have to start working on a group project right away. And it's like, I have to meet these people and let them know who I am while I'm trying to grapple with them and doing this stuff. And it gives me anxiety. So I stayed away, I just like, I'll just train by myself. I'm good. And then I was like, man, I'm not getting any better. I have to go train with these guys that I know can kick my butt and put me in these bad positions and make me better as a fighter. So that's what I see with Crows. Like they don't want to go to the grindhouse and train because they're scared. It's because they're going to get their butts kicked. And they don't want to put themselves in that position. They'd rather put themselves in a position where they're not having to give up. They don't have to let anybody win one. You know what I mean? So, and that's what I had to do for myself, my brain, for me to like even continue. And it was weird. Like I had issues, I still wrestle with issues, and the mental aspect of this sport can really fry you. It can really scramble your eggs, man. And it's like, it really can push you out of the sport too. I've seen a lot of guys quit because even though I felt like they could have been great fighters, it's just to the point where they didn't want to train no more because they didn't like having to accept the fact that, shoot, man, I have to, like they couldn't get over themselves. It's almost like in anything we do, we always want to be the best. We always like, even if we know we're not the best, we have to put that, we can't accept the fact that we're not. And so for any Native American, like I get it, man, we want to be the best. We want to be seen as these tough. I mean, we're natives, man. Like the hundreds of years ago, we had warriors that protected our tribe, fought, hunted, and they were warriors. They were savages, man. They didn't go nowhere. They're still here, but now they're getting in trouble. They're going to jail, and they have that same mindset, man. Like I can't let anybody get one up on me. This is survival, man. And it's like, that's how I see a lot of these kids, and I want to get them in MMA, and I'm like, you need to learn how to get humbled. Come to a wrestling class, man. Come wrestle with me once. Work hard, and when you're going to realize that you don't know what you don't know, and I think that's one of the most important things I tell people, like, you don't even know what you don't know yet, man. Like, you don't know. And it's like, I always think when people say like, you don't even know, bro, you don't even know. I'm like, no, you don't know. It's like, come on the mat, dude. It's like I've rolled with Marines. I've rolled with, guys that have been in, these big gyms. I know what it's like to roll with like some of the scariest dudes on the planet. And they just slice through me like freaking like butter, and I was like, just come out here and just, it humbled me a lot, man. It really did, especially when you go to a gym that's full of just black belts, and like, it doesn't come down to like, where's the white belts at? It comes down to like, dang, who's the weakest black belt here? Who can I, it's like, yeah, I'm the weakest link here for sure. So it's like, nobody likes to really put themselves in that position. And I think that's the one thing that Crows or Native Americans in general have to really put themselves in a position where they're not the best, and they have to accept getting handled on a daily basis.
Yeah. I see you're over at the grindhouse now, putting in the work, preparing for possibly a fight in December.
Yeah.
I'll see you again soon, and maybe we can go over some of your training and even your nutrition and supplements and stuff.
Yeah, training's like stepping up now. Nutrition's got to step up. It's this is going to be the first fight where everything's going to be pulled together. And it's like everything's out of my hands now. I'm not going to be doing this for myself by myself. It's going to be looking at going to professionals and having everything. Like I'm getting help in every aspect of this, and I'm going to have so much going into this that like I'm excited, dude. You know what I mean? Like I've never had a fight camp. I've never had a full team, and like now I have it. And these guys are like the best gym in Montana. And I'm like, let's do this, man. Like who? You know, it's like, let's go, man. You know, I was like, and it took a little bit of, like I said, I had to, you know, like, get over a lot and like, okay, let's go get our butts kicked, man. Like they got some scary dudes up there that are really good. And that like, they're just tough. They're just tough people. They're like super tough. And it's awesome because that inspires me. You know, it's like, dang, man, am I even tough? You know, it's like, I got to get tougher now.
All right, man. Well, there you have it, folks. The Myth, Aaron Bad Bear. Right? Is that your nickname?
That's it, man.
Yeah. The Myth?
Yeah, it used to be the Anti-Slayer, but they like that one.
All right, brother. Well, that's it, guys. You made it to the end. Thank you for tuning in to the Crow Strong podcast. I am your host, Bryan Singer. Look out for new episodes as I interview a new guest every weekend. At the end of the day, it is my goal to ultimately bring value to you, the listener. Again, thank you for listening to the Crow Strong podcast.